Assalamu alaikum dear students, welcome to another lecture of public finance, and we have started a new milestone in which we are discussing the public finance aspect of Pakistan's economy. It is getting more and more interesting when we discuss the government finances, and believe me, like in few lectures it would be much better than when we are discussing more interesting and debatable stuff. And today I would like start with a few debates that are very striking in nature, and you would be amazed by that. And with the start of Pakistan's perspective from public finance side, I started with introducing this book by S. Akbar Zaidi, which is Issues in Pakistan's Economy, which is one of the books, very important books written on the economy of Pakistan, taking along the historical perspective and then comparing it, considering each policy in time based on why that policy was made, and also through developments over the year, as well as comparing it with the countries of similar standing and on whenever it was possible. So it is a very intelligently written book and a very interesting one. I'm not marketing it any sense, but it's my honest opinion. I liked it a lot. And the book, basically what we discussed in the last lecture was that before starting from its chapters on public finance, resource mobilization, which are basically chapter 10 and 11, with the historical perspective of how the provinces and local government bodies worked, I would start with the concept that how this book was written. Actually, this book was based on 5 various eras, which were like laying the foundations, decade of development, and then the second military regime, then the bad luck years, then the second military regime, and then it was the age of structural adjustment programs and onwards. And why that was important? Because through this context we would be taking on discussing various discussions that are originating in the public finance history of Pakistan. Then I discussed the structure of the government. There are provincial government, there is federal government, provincial, and then local bodies. And I said that all the military governments established one or the other type of local bodies, and that the aim was towards empowerment, and the aim was to provide access to the individual directly to the government hierarchies where the issue is to be resolved. And main reason was empowerment, main reason was efficiency in the system. But then we also discussed that until 2002, the local governments never had any stronger you can say role, or in terms of revenue collection, or in terms of taking up the responsibility and enough backing. But that was with when in terms of LFO and 17 Legal Framework Order and 17th Amendment, they entered indirectly into the Constitution. We also highlighted that in terms of division, the federal government collects most of the most lucrative sort of revenue sources, and then there is provinces, and then the least amount is collected by the local bodies. And in terms of responsibilities, the revenue sources of local bodies is much less than what they can spend on. And in terms of in terms of provincial government, they collect on behalf of the local bodies and then transfer back to local bodies after deducting certain administrative charges. And that is because taxation system is complicated and local bodies cannot easily collect all that types of taxes. And plus another important aspect is that it is an advantage in terms of economies of scale when the provinces collect all the taxes, in majority of the taxes on behalf of the local bodies. Then another interesting thing was that there is NFC award, which is National Finance Commission award to provinces. In terms of this National Finance Commission award to provinces, it is a body commission constituted by the President of Pakistan, who's, and a certain divisible pool is created out of the taxes collected by the federal government mostly, and then these taxes are divided among the revenues generated are divided among the provinces in provinces in terms of based on their various aspects of their population, or we will discuss that again in this session also. And I said that since this book is up to 2005, so the latest NFC award is not would not be shown in this lecture, but later on when we finish this up, I would bring all the latest material and then we would discuss the latest material, but we would already have had an overview of this lecture as well and all the historical perspective. Now, in order to evaluate the overall intergovernmental transfer system, specifically the NFC award, it is basically distributed in terms of there are taxes distributed in terms of the population of a province, and then there are straight transfers based on collection origin and various grants, and they have been criticized by experts on the various grounds. I have been discussing this and we have been debating this. In fact, I was the only debater over here, as I never heard any arguments against what I said, but there would be in your minds, and I am just imparting my concepts and my school of thought or my state of mind, which I have gathered across time with through reading various books and articles. And of course you might have your own views on this, but what I'm discussing over here is how NFC award should be conducted and what are the criticisms over it. Then I would leave it open to the forum for you to decide. I would basically highlight the various criticisms. Now the point is that based on if it is based on the population and if it is based on the straight transfers only, then what would happen to the other provinces? The straight transfer component, 12% of the total revenue transfer, returns selected resource revenues in terms of oil, gas, excise and royalties and hydroelectric profits to the point of collection. So basically when federal government collects certain type of revenue, then 12% of that, which is the 12% of the total revenue transfer, then some part of that revenue selected sources is returned to the point of origin. That would mean that if, for example, gas is extracted from Balochistan, then returns from the sales proceed and excise duties and royalties from that would be returned to Balochistan later on. So there is debate on that these type of arrangements by the governments have no particular economic justification. The share of tax in terms of population and state transfers do not have certain economic justification, because the resources belong to the country and not just one province. And then on the other hand, in terms of certain cases, for example, it can be said that they do benefit the smaller and less wealthy provinces, but this creates some major resentment, because these type of, for example, royalties that are transferred, you can say the straight transfers also benefit the provinces like maybe Balochistan or Sindh, where there won't be any substantial amount of returns in terms of collection of tax share in terms of population, because Punjab would be the most populated province. They would get most of in terms of the tax share, but then the provinces like Balochistan and Sindh would get transfers in terms of the resources that they provide to the country as a whole. So they would also get a significant amount of share out of that. But then the larger, wealthier provinces like Punjab would also demand that their agriculture is also a resource that is provided by them to rest of the country. So the sales proceeds and excise duties and royalties out of that should also be transferred to Punjab. Now this is again, as I said, that a debate and a matter of resentment among the provinces. Now as it is mentioned in the last point of the slide, that given the distribution of natural resources and current political environment, it may be advisable to continue with the present system of state transfer, as they provide some resources to the backward provinces. Now the main thing is that provinces like Balochistan and Sindh are very huge provinces in terms of area. Now considering the level of population that they have, so only if it is transferred to them in terms of the share of population, then that would be much less to develop such a big area and to provide infrastructure for future investments and development. In terms of taxation, if maybe, for example, most of the taxes originated from Karachi, or then most of the revenue in terms of collection might go to that area if we consider trade, or for example imports through ports. So then they would be liable for most of the revenue from that side. So there should be, in my view at least, there should be a balanced mechanism where certain percentage of each type of source, either the straight transfer or the revenue generation, should be allocated among the provinces. And the latest NFC award is has much better distribution than these previous awards that we saw in the last lecture, and we are still discussing those. So in the end, I would say that it would be very fruitful to look at the latest NFC award, which I would show you once we are through the historical perspective of public finance of Pakistan, and then we would come to the latest aspects. Now then, what are the fiscal issues under the new district government system established in 2002 by the government of General President Pervez Musharraf? With current government system, imposition of a new tax by local government without any corresponding levy by other similar governments can make mobile tax resources move out of the tax jurisdiction to the other location. Now the point is that now this discriminates against the more backward jurisdiction which needs higher revenues, and due to lack of infrastructure and other amenities, economic activities are already limited. The point is that under this taxation system, if a local government can establish a new tax, for example, in their local area, then there are movable resources also which are being taxed. So those movable resources, like for example land cannot move, but for example individuals can take many of their resources out of that area and take to the areas which are not taxed heavily. Now, in order to develop certain areas, it is necessary that you increase the tax, but if you increase the tax, your resources would run away from your jurisdiction or your local area to the other local area. Now, there is an issue in terms of the new government system. Now, local government employ a variety of new revenue measures to meet their expenditure needs with no consideration given to the viability, efficacy or sustainability of these measures. Now, I was discussing in the last slide that there was a case in which the provinces have the veto power or over the final approving authority over the district governments, and maybe this is one of the reasons that since local governments are not like trained, do not have such trained bureaucrats, or local governments are not such trained in tax machinery, that they might be irresponsible, which is mentioned as an example. Tehsil in Khairpur district decided to use its development funds to establish public real estate which could yield a future stream of rental income for the TMA. So due to such actions by the local governments, while they were the newly formed local governments, while they, in order to make them efficient, they were allowed to start with applying taxes and take decisions on their own. But such type of decisions in which the main thing was that entering into a public real estate business would automatically mean that it would be against the overall mandate of the government that private sector should be in front and public sector should just be there to support. So this is a proper business venture being taken up, so that is reducing the involvement of private sector in there. And then again it is a risky business, so all the development funds to establish a real estate would, with expectation of certain future stream of income, would be a very dangerous activity. Now the thing is that this type of actions by certain municipal administrations, Tehsil municipal administrations, which is mentioned as TMA over here, is that or certain, for example, union councils started to collect tolls as against the Zilla tax. So then the federal government decided that any levy of new tax on such actions might be approved through the provincial governments later on, and this was the reason that why the authority was not transferred directly, which I also discussed in the last lecture. Coming on to the matter of public finance of Pakistan, the main reason why I discussed the 5 eras and why the author laid down the history of economics of Pakistan into 5 eras and what was the implication of that was exactly what is being displayed on the slide right now. So before we move on, we should discuss the basic public finance facts of in terms of Pakistan. Main source of revenue has historically been the custom duties and taxation on trade. Now, as I said, that in the area of in the era of for example, decade of development, which was Ayyub's era, the main focus was industrialization, and that industrialization was basically based on import substitution policies. Under import substitution policy, what you do is that you want to substitute the import, so you put a tariff barrier on certain products, and no doubt that was import substitution policy was the policy is followed by most of the developing countries, and in that time it was a norm actually. So there are higher tariff barriers on certain custom duties on certain types of products which you want to produce yourself, and then you reduce for example, if you want to start import substitution policy, you might increase taxes and tariffs and create tariffs and non-tariff barriers and quota restrictions for example textile and general other consumer goods. Then what you do is you lower the tariffs on the capital goods that are required to produce these goods. So in the end, you are producing those goods and providing a foundation for establishment of your domestic industry, while providing it protection all along. So that's how your local industries develop. So in the end, what the result was, since across the time most of the revenue historically was basically the custom duties and tariff barriers, basically which is termed as the taxation of trade. So with high tariff barriers and import substitution industrialization, this was a logical outcome that in the end you would be earning more revenue and you would be dependent on that. Taxes from imports were until recently the main source of the revenue for our finances. But the interesting thing is that later on, with the opening up of the economy with structural adjustment programs, these barriers were at least removed or toned down or reduced. Then the problem was that our other sources of revenue were not developed as much to meet that shortfall. We would be discussing that also in the current slide or maybe in the next one. Despite the impressive industrialization and dynamic economic growth that took place in 1960s, yeah, I guess this is the point that I was mentioning that we would discuss. The contribution of income and corporate taxes usually declined as a percentage of total recipients for United Pakistan. Now the point is that with so much industrialization and development, structural changes in the country, it was a possibility that the country should be dependent on, should be getting, for example, huge sources of revenue in terms of corporate taxes, in terms of income taxes also. But that never took place, as mentioned over here, that it actually declined as a percentage of the total revenue. Now, when the barriers were removed and when the trade, for example, the taxation on trade was reduced in a sense, then the burden could have been improved by the income generation, because all those barriers were there to improve industrialization in the country, to provide protection to the industry, and that was done. The industry was protected and industrialization process too did to take place. Now, if the industrialization process did take place and there were profits to the industrialists as well as to more employment in the country, that would automatically mean that people's income would go up and there would be more revenue from income taxes and corporate taxes, but that never took place. We still wonder why, but let's move on. On expenditure side, Pakistan was with more than half of the total expenditure being spent on defense since 1947 to at least 1971. So more than half of the expenditure was going toward the defense side of the country. In 1971, 53% of the total expenditure was on defense. Now, and in 1962, for example, of the total available to spend in Pakistan, as much as 73% were external funds. In 66 and 67, this was 74%. Another interesting fact. Now, you look at this. They're a country which is first of all dependent on custom duties and taxes through taxation, is protecting its domestic industry through taxation on trade, is protecting its domestic industry for development, and that development does not lead to any substantial sources of revenue generation through income and corporate taxes, because incomes have increased, because corporations have been established, because industrialization has taken place from 1960s to 1970s, before the period of nationalization. Throughout Ayoub's era, there was directed development, and that should increase income. So where is the taxation from all that increase in income? Because when later on, after 1988 onwards, when you remove those barriers, a major chunk of revenue that you were dependent on was gone. So now where do you get the revenue from? Well, we would get there when we would discuss that. Then another important aspect is that the defense revenue, defense expenditure was more than 50% of most of the expenditure until 1970s, like early 1970s. So that is again an interesting fact for a country which is going through an industrialization process and then spending more than 50% of its expenditure on the defense side. Then another important aspect, the most important of it, is that from the greater expenditure in Ayoub's era on development was basically somehow dependent on external funds. In 1962 to 63, 73% were of the total expenditure of external funds, and in 66 to 67, the external funds were basically 74%. So the decade of development was basically financed by external funds. Maybe because that won't be part of our discussion over here, but Pakistan's development process has been funded by international funds a lot, because of lesser sources of revenues across the country. They have not developed across time with structural changes in the economy, but external sources of revenue have funded the whole decade of development. This is the view of many of the economists, that decade of development and maybe Zia's era's development were funded by foreign sources of funds. And then the principal sources of funds from Pakistan, if you look at it, 1947, 48, 57, 58, 64, 65 and 70, 71. Custom duties have increased, central excise duties have increased a lot. This is in a million rupees. Now income tax and corporate tax have not changed substantially as regard to, if you look at custom duties and central excise duties. Now all those duties mean that the industry is being protected. and from foreign competition, so that the industry can develop, and later on when we open the country to foreign competition, they would be sustainable and they can compete with foreign countries and foreign companies. Then but on the other hand, when there is increase in such a revenue, and then where is the return from income tax and corporate tax? Now that is a dilemma over here. Then sales tax have increased, but yeah, it's almost double, almost. Then total revenue receipts have increased over time. Now these are the principal sources of revenue for the United Pakistan, which is 1947 to 1971. Now again, these are the expenditures of the government. These are not in percentages. These are again, as I said, that these tables are taken from the book Issues in Pakistan's Economy, and in that book also there is a discussion on each table, and I am doing the same over here for you, because when we discuss the historical context of Pakistan's revenue expenditures, only then we would be able to understand that what is taking place currently in the country, because all the events that are taking place currently are dependent on somehow or the other on historical context as well. So you cannot ignore the historical developments if you want to see the current context of a country. So general administration is one of the expenditures. Then there is expenditure on social sector. Then there is expenditure on defense, which has almost more than doubled or quadrupled, you can say. Then there is the total expenditure. Then you can see the surplus or deficit. Total development expenditure is shown in our second last column, and the total non-development expenditure is shown in the last column. Now the interesting thing is that the non-development expenditure is much less than the development expenditure, one interesting aspect. Then there was surplus in like 57 to 58, 64 to 65 and 70, 71, the last three sets of years shown over here. But the defense expenditure has increased a lot, and it is almost, you can see, compare it, when you compare the defense expenditure with the total expenditure, it is almost, or in some cases more than 50% of the total expenditure, which is striking in fact for a country which is, for example, in 1970-71, the defense expenditure is $3,200 million rupees, while the total expenditure is 6,002 million rupees. It is more than double, in fact, more than 50%. Then another striking thing for the for Pakistan across the time from 1967 to 2002, if you look at the this is a constant price as a percentage of GDP. Now if you see that the left bar is representing the tax revenue and the black bars along them are representing the non-tax revenues. So if you look at this table, the tax revenues, for example, have not increased substantially as a percentage of GDP, which they should have, and there is not much increase or change in the non-tax revenue sources also, which is also an implication for when the government goes into NFCA awards, and the distribution is in terms of percentage of population through which the tax is collected. This also has an implication for that as well. Now Pakistan's economy was highly dependent on aid, and that much of the industrialization on the boom of decade of development was foreign funded. The interesting fact is that even after 16 years of structural reforms, these are the points that I've discussed before across while looking at those tables, I guess, but we still need to continue. Very little has changed, and in fact in the case of tax revenues as percent of GDP, there is much deterioration present. In next table we would be looking at the same thing in table 10.6. please remember that despite very structural reforms across the country from the last 16 to 20 years, the tax revenue as a percent of GDP, there is deterioration in that as such. And then the breakdown of revenue expenditure of the government is shown in a greater detail in the coming tables. Now first one is table 10.6, which is visible on the slide right now. Now interesting thing is that tax revenue as a percentage of GDP has declined from 1987 to 2002-03, which is striking, because a country with so much structural reforms across time should have a greater part of tax revenue by now as a percentage of total government revenue, but that has not changed. And so even across the time, the total revenues from as a percentage of GDP was 17.3 to 17.6% in 2002, which is not a much change, while expenditure has reduced. But we are basically focusing on the tax revenues, which have not changed in last these are like around from 87 to 2002, these are almost 16-17 years, and despite so many structural changes in the country, the tax revenues have not changed. Now if you look at this, another striking interesting part is that the direct tax revenue to indirect tax revenue, the ratio between the direct tax revenue and indirect, because this is the breakup of various types of revenues of the government. Now I want to put your focus on for example, first of all, the area which is highlighted, the direct tax revenue, which is, for 87 it is 1244 million rupees, while in 2002 it is 1,52,072 million rupees. But the whole discussion is not the comparison between these two, but the comparison between direct and indirect taxation. A country where there are indirect taxes are mostly taxes on consumption, and direct taxes are basically consumption on income, as we discussed earlier in our previous lectures, mostly. Now the point is that across the time, as a country develops and a country grows, and there is industrialization, there is increase in income, you might see that direct taxes might become a substantial part of the country's revenue as against the indirect taxes. But in case of Pakistan, you see there is a stark difference between direct and indirect taxes. Direct taxes are even a small percentage of the indirect tax as the total government revenue. So if you look at this, when across from 1987 to 2002, when the direct taxes in terms of million of rupees has increased, so has indirect taxes increased a lot. In fact, they have more than doubled over there. Then the excise duties and federal provincial taxes have also excise duty in terms of federal and provincial have also increased a lot. And then sales tax has increased, which is part of the indirect taxes. Then you see there are surcharges on petroleum and gas, and there are taxes on international trade which have increased a lot. Now if you see the non-tax revenue by the government, which is shown in the last which is part 3 of this table, part 2 of this table in fact, has not shown any substantial improvement. Now if we move on, revenue from taxation is far greater than from non-tax revenue, and that indirect taxes are as many times as larger as direct taxes. These are the points that I was discussing in the table. I just need to highlight them again, because as I said that in these kinds of lectures, which I cannot take a quiz at the spot, or I cannot see that if you're sleeping or not. Repetition is one of repetition and association are two very important aspects. So that is why first I explain the same points on the table, and then I re-narrate all those points while they are written in front of you. These are the same points that I mentioned before. So please focus on them, and so you can understand the basic changes that are taken place across historical developments of public finance in Pakistan. Now in table 10.7, the previous table, we saw that revenue from taxation is far greater than that from the non-tax revenue, and that indirect taxes as many times as large as direct taxes. Please do remember that there are effects of direct and indirect and all types of taxation on the government on efficiency. Do keep that in mind, and there are deadweight losses and excess burdens as well. Then further, indirect tax category. Within the indirect tax category, import duties used to dominate by far and provided the largest source of income to the government. But then later on that diminished, because if you look at the table again, the import duties within the indirect taxes, the import duties contributed a lot, but later when with the structural adjustment program, their contribution has reduced within, I'm talking only within the indirect taxes. This has all changed, has been one of the most significant changes in Pakistan's economy as a result of lowering tariffs and overall reforms, because structural adjustment programs were basically focused on opening up of the economy, lowering the tariff barriers and removal of non-tariff barriers, and overall reforms for provision of healthy competition to the foreign firms and no protection to the domestic industry. So based on that, the import duties, which were a major part of Pakistan's revenue in the start, has reduced its significance in terms of the revenue. Now this is the federal statement for the expenditure. If you look at it, the main thing is that the development expenditure has not increased a lot when compared with the current expenditure. Then I hope you can see, well, the figure is not mentioned over here directly. In 2002, the basically I'm considering the development expenditure right now, was less than 19% of the total provincial and federal current expenditure. So the development expenditure is far less than the other non-development expenditure by the government, which is very striking for a developing country. And then another important aspect of this table in front of you right now is, if you look at it, that defense expenditure and the interest payments are the two most significant part of the expenditures of the government, taking most of the government's revenue or constituting a major part of the total government expenditure. Now this is again a very striking aspect, which would be also discussed in coming slides, as well as when we discuss the current scenario of development. Now data for 2002 and 2003 also show that defense and interest payments account for more than half of all the government expenditure, as I just said. This issue is key importance to the economy and politics as well, because there is a debate on that also. It has been observed at a certain global level. I do not remember the reference right now, but I would mention that in any case, and I would let you know the reference later on. When there is at the time of for example any military government, the defense expenditure actually falls down rather than the other remaining expenditure, because they are of the view, economists are of the view, that during the regimes of the military governments, it is a possibility that since the whole budget is in control of the military government, then they might be there is no need to take a separate head of the defense expenditure, because defense expenditure generally all expenditure included for the defense purposes. Still, data for 2002 and 2003 also show that defense expenditure and interest payments accounts for more than half of all the expenditures, and this issue is the key importance of economics and politics. Development expenditure is far less than current or non-development expenditure. In 2002 and 3 was less than 19% of the total provincial and federal government expenditures. So moving on, this is a summary of public finance and provincial governments across federal and provincial governments across 1978 to 2003 as a percentage of GDP. Now if you see over here, the issue is still the same, that across time the total revenues for the government has increased, but not that very substantially, because now they are at current market prices. So they are at constant, they are real values. So if you look at the total revenues in 1960s, the average was 13.1 In 1980s, the average was 17.3. 1990s average was 17.1 again, which was a reduction. And if you see 1998 and 2002, actually there is not much a striking difference. Now the same is the case with tax revenues and non-tax revenues. Non-tax revenues have decreased from 1980s average in 1998, has increased a little bit in 2002. Now if you look at the expenditure side, the total expenditure, there is increase in 1990s, and then it is almost constant at 24.1% in as 1990s average. Now another interesting thing is that the overall deficit has increased from, it was highest in 1991 and 1990, but it has increased substantially. It was in 1960s average was 2.1, but it has increased a lot. So this table shows that total revenue has not grown substantially over the last decade and range around 17 to 18% of the GDP. Tax revenue is only 13% as a cause of serious concern, because with so much structural changes in the economy and so much industrialization and so much growth, where are all the tax revenues? So it is a matter of great concern for the policymakers. And what is the reason? If it is tax evasion, then what is the reason for that sort of tax evasion, and how can it be reduced? Because we discussed that marginal benefit can be reduced or marginal cost can be increased, but how to actually apply that, how they can increase the marginal cost. So that would be a great policy concern, and which should be taken as soon as possible. Then if we look at another aspect which we needed to discuss over here, is that the development expenditure has this is based on growth rates in terms of the preceding year. How for example, I have highlighted few over here. There is defense expenditure and interest expenditure, and there is development expenditure. There are two panels in this table. If you look at it, the first panel is growth rate over a preceding period, growth rate across the time over the preceding period, and then the second panel is like last 3 or 4 or last actually 4 rows, which is as percentage of the total expenditure. What I need to highlight over here is that defense payments and interest payments have increased across the time, and in certain times there are like substantial jumps. For example, 38.7% in 1987 to 88 were interest payments, and 13.7% growth was of the expenditure. These are the growths. Then there have been a few negative growths, in fact reductions in then when compared with the previous year, but increases have been very substantial. And specifically in 1996 and 1997, you can see that 21.6% and 25.6% were basically the interest payments, growth in interest payments. That mean that we have been accumulating debt a lot. Then there is development expenditure, and you can see that most of the time periods have shown a decrease in the development expenditure in terms of growth. There are growth rates, positive growth, but not very substantial. But most striking part of it would come when we go to the last panel, that development expenditure as percentage of the total expenditure has been decreasing a lot. Like in 1970s it was 31.9%, and it decreased to around 10% in 2001, and then increased back up to 18.3% approximately. So development expenditure as a part of total expenditure has reduced a lot, and is obviously a matter of serious concern. So this table shows how government expenditure has grown over time and the extent of allocation to different expenditure heads. Defense and interest payments have shown only positive, at times dramatic increases over the previous year, and development expenditure has been cut by equal dramatic amounts in some years. And one of the parts that we missed is in terms of mentioning over here was that in terms of percentage of the total expenditure, it has been declining substantially. So here it would also be interesting to see who contributes what part and how those towards the total expenditure and total revenue, and how those contributions have changed across time. So there is for example 6% contribution in terms of total revenues in 1990s. There is 6% contribution by local and 6% contribution of provincial governments, while 88% was the contribution by the federal. But then the provincial expenditure has been 28%, while 4% by the local, which is much less. And we were discussing the same scenario in terms of public finance for local governments, and 68% was consumed in terms of expenditure by the federal government. Now across 2002, you can see that contribution of the provinces and the local governments have reduced as a percentage of the total revenue, as well as their expenditures have increased in terms of provincial and local revenue. Now then moving on, compositions of government total expenditure, as highlighting again and again the aspect of development expenditure, current expenditure, defense expenditure, and interest payment. These are the four major heads across which the public finance or the government expenditure is evaluated. If you look at this, then interest payments across the time, there are periods from 1971, 77, 80, 90, 98 and 2002. If you look at it, then interest payment, which was only 1.8% of the total GDP in the start in 1970s, 71, has increased to around you can say 4.9%, while 7.5% were somewhere in the middle. When currently, if you when I would bring the latest statistics of Pakistan, is much more than this, I guess. Then there is defense expenditure, which has increased, and then there is development expenditure, which has reduced substantially from 4.9 during 77 and 80. There were 9.9% of the GDP, while now in 2002 there are 2.2% only. Then the current expenditure has increased from 10% to 16.4%. Which is again very interesting. So looks at these expenditure figures, a proportion of GDP, and shows that interest payments and defense consume almost half of the total expenditure, which is very interesting. And now what we would do is that we will examine some of the key public finance ratios in Pakistan over a period of about 30 years, but in table 10.12, which is coming up, we might not be covering all these tables in this lecture because of shortage of time, so we would take the remaining tables in the next lecture. So here is a very interesting slide which shows that out of total receipts, tax receipts, share of different levels of government in revenue and expenditure, the federal government contributes, has 90.2% share, provinces have 5% share in 2001, and local governments at 4.8% share. The share of local governments has reduced, of the provinces have reduced, and now the federal has reduced. The difference that is shown over here is that the share of federal government has increased, but share of provincial and local governments has reduced across time from 1979 to 1990 to 2001. While in terms of expenditure, if you look at it, then federal government's expenditure has, if we look at share in terms of percentage, their expenditure has reduced, but provincial government's expenditure has increased, and so does local government's expenditure has increased. So if you look at this, the expenditure, the tax, the collection effort, the revenue generation effort has been by the federal government, while the provincial and local governments have only been the beneficiary of that effort by the federal government. And we will discuss, you can say, the efforts in terms of collection of revenue by the provincial governments later as well. Then, now, the interesting thing, key figures that are highlighted over here is the tax revenue as a percentage of the total revenue, non-tax revenue as a percentage of total revenue. Now they from 1964 to 1980 it is around 70 to 80%, and the same for non-tax revenue, which has in fact reduced as a percentage of total revenue. But the main thing that I discussed again and again is that the tax revenue should increase a lot as compared to what it has over here, and non-tax revenue should also increase. Then direct tax revenue as a percentage of tax revenue is around 14%, which is striking, because income tax and corporate tax, with so much structural improvements in the economy, where is all that tax of, where is all that revenue in terms of direct tax revenue for the government? And indirect tax revenue, which is taxes on consumption, has been around 80% or around 85% in fact across the board throughout this time period, which is again shocking, because as the countries develop, the burden of taxation shifts towards direct taxation rather than indirect taxation. But in our case, the burden on indirect taxation is still the same, while direct taxation has shown no improvement across the time. Now, when you move towards the expenditure side, if we the one that I need to discuss, I have already highlighted those. So when you look at the expenditure, when sources of the revenue side, then most of the revenue is from the external sources, which is 49% in 1964, 48% in 1972, 58% in 1985, and 73% in 1989. So the dependence on the external sources of revenue or external sources of finance is not revenue but finance, is striking for a country which is striving to ensure a sustainable development path, and yet our direct tax revenue has not shown any considerable improvement. Expenditures have increased, so that is why there is a turn toward external sources of revenue, and that has resulted into increased debt servicing, which you would see in the next highlighted part. Debt servicing as a percentage of total expenditure of the federal government, which has increased from 3 to 39% in 1989 to 90. Now, if you see that it is because of the external sources of our total expenditure which we have relied upon, and debt servicing has increased, and so as the internal debt servicing has also increased from 5% in 1964 to 21% in 1989-90. Now, these are striking figures showing striking results, and you can also see that this is the development history in terms of a country which is striving to ensure a sustainable path of development. But across the time, its sources of revenue have not converted from indirect to direct sources of revenue, because despite such structural reforms in Pakistan, there must be higher incomes and must be substantial profits. So where is the taxation from that? And then because usually there is a risk of falling into a deficit, then there is external borrowing, and that our whole development process of 1960s was based on foreign aid, and since we are financing through external sources, we are going to pay for that in terms of debt servicing later on, and the burden would be shifted on next generations. Then if you see, another important thing over here is the ratio of development expenditure to non-development expenditure, which has still not shown any striking improvement. Then when we consider the federal tax receipts, again the thing that I have been saying again and again, indirect taxes in terms of custom duties, central excise and sales tax are a larger part of the total tax revenue of the government, of the federal government, from 1983 to 2003, and as compared to the direct taxes. And secondly, another interesting aspect is that within that bracket of indirect taxes, custom duties have lost its significance, while sales tax has gained an important portion of the tax revenue of the government. Then there are taxes and their distribution as percentage share. If you look at it, again, as I said, that from across the time, income tax has increased, but not a lot. Then there is a reduction in custom duties from 1983 to 2002 that represents a reduction in, for example, you can say opening up because of structural adjustment programs, opening of a border, reduction of trade barriers and tariff and non-tariff barriers, and that is also an implication of reduction in custom duties. And then the major increase in that is significant is in terms of sales tax, that is from 9 to 42% from 1983 to 2002, which is a substantial increase. Then as I have been highlighting again and again, and you must be bothered by it, but this is a very important aspect. Now this table highlights the same thing which we have discussed before, that from 1983 to 2002 direct tax has increased, but the share of indirect tax has increased more. You can see some improvement from 2002 and 2003 onwards in the taxation of Pakistan taxation system. Now this is a pie chart being displayed on the slide right now, which is showing the different types of taxes, and income tax has improved substantially, improved a lot, but not actually the improvement has been not very consistent and not very static. There has been improvement in 2002, but it should have started, the process of improvement should have started a long time ago. Then income tax is 17% increase to 32%. Custom duties have reduced from 43% to 15%. Central excise duties have reduced from 31% to 10%, and sales tax have reduced from 9% to 43%. This is again another figure representing the same issue of direct taxes and indirect tax. There is some improvement in the income taxes, as you saw in the previous slide and the slide before that, but then that increase is not comparative, even close to the increase in the sales taxes. So that mean in the end the direct taxes would have a lesser share of the total taxes when you compare it with the indirect taxes. So still there is now, this is level and composition of tax revenues in developing countries. Why I'm making it again a point to mention this again and again. The main aspect is that if you look at the countries with per capita income less than 360, their income tax is around 3.27% of the GDP. Now the countries with per capita income of 360 to 750, their tax revenue is income tax is 5.53, or you can see the direct taxes 3.91% and 6.84% of the GDP. Then if you move below in terms of indirect taxes or sales taxes, indirect taxes are 4.55 to 4.74% of the GDP. Now these two group of countries with per capita income of less than 360 and with per capita income of 360 to 750 dollars, when you look at Pakistan from 1989 to 1990 and to 1992 to 1993, Pakistan should be comparable with these two, right? 1989-90 should be comparable with per capita income of less than 360, and for example, the main thing is that as countries grow across time, for example, their development process is improved. They are developing countries, but they are improving. So direct taxes have increased from 3.91% to 6.81%. The main thing is that, and so within the direct taxes, income tax has improved from 3.27. This is the average of the developing countries, and 5.53 in terms of income tax percent of GDP, and wealth and property tax have also improved from 0.24 to 0.31%. Now when we turn to Pakistan, now direct taxes are only 1.83 and 2.71%, which are are much less below, which are much below the average of the developing countries, and then the income tax is only 1.75, has improved to 2.58%, and there is very less wealth and property tax despite so much structural developments and reforms in the country, industrialization and incomes and wealth generation, and there the wealth tax is only 0.13% of the GDP, which is very striking for a country like Pakistan. Now, on the other hand, if you see another part of indirect tax, which is sales tax, we are on almost similar grounds, but then if we move down, indirect tax is foreign. When we move into, for example, import duties, we see that we are paying less of that as a percentage of GDP, but when we look at export duties, we have actually had a reduction in terms of exports, 0.57% of the GDP in 1989 to 90 to 0.06% of the GDP in 1992 to 1993, and the point is that 0.06 is compared to 0.64% for rest of the countries. So these figures are striking, and that is why I have been making that point again and again, that the direct tax revenue by the government is much more is much less than what it should have been as compared to the indirect tax revenue. And when we compare countries of similar level with us, we see that their income taxes, their property taxes, their corporate taxes are much more as compared to what we collect in Pakistan. I guess we are running out of time now, so I better go through all of this once more. So in order to discuss just once more so that we can have a summary. Now, there is we started with overall evaluation of intergovernment transfer system, and we discussed that there is a debate that when there is transfer based on the share of population, then there would be wealthy provinces who have a larger share of population of the total country, and they would be getting much more transfers, and then as against that, if we share on based of geographical location, geographical size, covered area, then the poorer provinces would be getting more. So in that sense, there is another straight transfer by the government, which is transfer for oil and gas and excise and royalties. Those are transferred to the provinces, and on one hand, the richer provinces, like for example Punjab, may object that we provide there should be a similar treatment of our resources like agriculture resources like other provinces, but then this also provide the poorer provinces with more resources to develop. Then we also discussed that with the current system, when it was established, the local government system in 2002, the local governments were allowed to levy tax on their own, but then certain mistakes by local governments resulted the federal government taking action and then asking them to seek approval from the provincial governments. Then we came to the basic facts of public finance. After discussing this only last half from the last lecture, we came to the basic facts. Now we discussed that historically the main source of revenue was for Pakistan were custom duties, but when and due to industrialization and import substitution policy, that was very obvious. Was later on, when the country developed and with opening up of the economy, those custom duties were reduced due to structural adjustment programs, and the major source of revenue should have shifted from custom duties to income taxes, but actually they shifted to sales taxes later on. And then we also, across this discussion through various tables, we discussed that defense expenditure is one of the main expenditures by the government, and so is the non-development expenditure. And secondly, we also discussed that country is highly dependent on foreign aid. In fact, most of the development process of 1960 was funded by the foreign aid and for external borrowing, foreign aid to be true. And then we also saw that tax revenue have not shown a considerable improvement across time, and in terms of direct and indirect taxes revenue, indirect taxes are much more, contributing a lot towards the total tax revenue being collected, and within indirect tax revenue, custom duties have lost their strength, and sales tax have increased considerably. And then we saw that defense expenditure and has increased a lot, and so has debt servicing, interest payments, while the development expenditure has not improved substantially, which we saw through various slides, and comparing the tax revenue and non-tax revenue and the development expenditure by the government. And then we saw that the development expenditure as a percentage of total expenditure has actually declined across time, which is very alarming and striking. And while the defense expenditure and interest payments have shown very considerable higher growth rates. And then we discussed that composition of total government expenditure, again the same thing, and we saw that defense expenditure and interest payments actually mostly take more than half of the government's total expenditure, almost the half of the government's total expenditure payments. And then we discussed these other key public finance figures. Most importantly, I discussed this table in detail, and I would like to summarize that again. Now we see over here is that direct tax revenue is around 14 as a percentage of total tax revenue is around 14%, and indirect tax revenue is 83, 87, 86%, which is a lot. And then external, we are a lot dependent on external sources as a percentage of total capital expenditure by the government, and we see that it has increased from 49% to 73%, and that has resulted into debt servicing as percentage of total expenditure of federal government, which has increased from 3% to 39%, and internal debt servicing has increased from 5% to 21%, which is very striking for a country like Pakistan, whose income tax has not, whose direct tax revenue has not improved substantially. Then this is the most important slide I think that I discussed. Well, why I have been mentioning again the direct tax revenue and indirect tax revenue thing is that when you compare it among developing countries, the average is that the direct tax revenue improves from 3.91% of GDP to 6.84% of GDP when the country develops, while for in case of Pakistan it only improved from 1.83% to 2.71%. And when you not just horizontal comparison, when you do the vertical comparison with direct and indirect tax revenue, then you see that 3.91% for countries with less than 360 as against 4.55% in indirect tax revenue has improved from, now the direct tax revenue is greater 6.84% and indirect tax revenue is less than that 4.74%, while in case of Pakistan the indirect tax revenue has reduced a little and direct tax revenue has only improved from 1.83 to 2.71 as against 4.81 to 4.33 of indirect tax revenue, which is striking. And specifically when you see indirect taxes foreign in terms of export duties, there is actually a reduction from 0.57 to 0.06 because of reduced restrictions by the government due to structural adjustment programs. Thanks a lot. We have covered some part of public finance in terms of Pakistan. We would continue doing this, and then we would inshallah move on to the latest statistics and figures. Hope to see you again. Take care.